Jeff, Jim, and Carmela, part number 24. Jim continued to process the things that had happened to his life after Carmela entered it. Then, like a light bulb appearing over a cartoon character, when the truth is finally revealed, Jim realized Carmela was the story. How else could such a beautiful open-book girl command so much from the people around her? If Carmela had any secrets, Jim could not figure out what they were. Her life, as she explained it to Jim the night they were married in Atlanta, was what it was, and she said she could not function knowing the man she was with would be wondering about her life, especially with Jim's twin brother Jeff. She had explained it all, including her Japanese experience, but at that time she did not think Jim would see the videotape. She told Jim it was the only way she could free her mind. She admitted to the fact that what she found so infectious about Jim and Jeff was their complete lack of being inferior. She was more convinced than ever that this was true after Jim viewed the tape. She said any man without an inferiority complex would never suffer from jealousy. Jim had never thought of himself like this, but it was true. Nothing Carmela had to say about Japan or what happened to her gave him any cause to be concerned. He knew after last night he could keep Carmela from wanting to stray. Jim could not believe the way he felt with Carmela. It was like a Cinderella story without her being Cinderella. The honesty they now shared was infectious and freed them from all suspicions that dishonesty would present for two people. Carmela was free to love freely and be with Jim with her intellect intact. Last night, when Jim decided to let go and take charge, was when he realized how much in control of her emotions Carmela was, and it finally dawned on him what was so unique about her. Not that he had any proof at this time, but he had a strong feeling she probably had some gypsy in her bloodline. She was free to be any way she wanted to be, without any inhibitions, and Jim was the recipient of that, and he was more in love with Carmela than he thought possible. Jim was a man confident and comfortable in his skin, and the two of them did not want last night to end. Jim and Carmela had no doubts the way they came together was probably a result of MI7 looking out for their own. Jeff was an asset, and why would they not look out for her? Carmela did not know about the heroic things Jeff did, disarming the detonator. The Turks were also a fan of Jeff, and although Jim and Carmela did not know at the time, the Turkish intelligence folks would help Jim and Carmela escape the country. Margot would remain clueless as the Turks continued to use her as a stooge for this Orient Express escape. At this juncture, there was much more to the story than Jim and Carmela could imagine. The building across from the train station looked like something out of the Arabian Nights. It was built during the Ottoman Empire. Jim and Carmela were shocked when they saw Mehmet emerge from the building. Mehmet opened the door on the driver's side and gave the taxi driver several Turkish lira. He then gave Margot a package containing 10,000 US dollars and told her to have a good life and make it that way by never talking about what she just did and saw. The $20,000 Margot had received from the mysterious courier that came into the club where she was performing was a cover to keep the Soviets in the dark. The agents were looking for gangsters, not knowing the Turks were in on the plan to get Jim and Carmela out of the country as soon as possible. The Turkish intelligence would use the money to bribe the Bulgarian customs people. Mehmet told Jim and Carmela the ride in the Orient Express locomotive would be very uncomfortable, but the express went through so many countries and changed engines at different locations, it would be impossible to keep them from being discovered. By the same token, they could not ride in the passenger cars because of the amount of people riding the train would make it impossible to not be found out. Mehmet told Jim the locomotive was a steam engine which would make the trip like a trip from Hades. Mehmet described how they had contracted a smuggler to fly them to France from Bulgaria. He said the Turks did not want the Soviets to be aware of Turkish involvement in the plan, so they had devised another way to get them out of the country.